welcome back to Media and More with the Mediocre Modeler. Before we get to Ahsoka episode 7, let's check our poll to see if Sabine is still in lead for the person who most needs to be trained by Ahsoka. It looks like Sabine is maintaining her lead at 62%. If you'd like to vote, just go to the Mediocre Modeler YouTube channel, click on Community, and there you go. Ahsoka. Really? Really? Hi, how are you? Okay. Ahsoka, episode 7, Dreams and Madness. Episode 7 begins on Coruscant, and Hera's standing before the senators because she's, they're like, well, where have you been? What have you been doing? Who told you to go out there? There's no proof. And Senator Ziono is just giving it to her, just like, you can't be running rogue and ignoring orders. Well, I didn't ignore orders, I ignored you. And it is nice to see, as much as I don't... Okay, come on, go. As much as I like to see, as much as I don't like to see the politics part of it, it is nice to see Hera, this strong general, standing before the Republic and holding her ground. I don't look for spoilers, so I didn't expect to see C-3PO show up, but it was really nice, since we can't have Leia, and having C-3 show up to relay a message for her was so much better than them trying to CGI her head onto somebody's body. I think it, honestly, it's a little disrespectful at this point, for one. And for two, it just didn't, we'd all know. It just wouldn't feel right, So I'm glad they chose that path. The senator apparently doesn't care for droids because he was like, how are we supposed to take this information from a mere droid? And man, Chopper's hood. Chopper was ready to jump out of his shell, his hole, or whatever, and nobody needs that. So this is the kind of character that I'm expecting from Chopper. I mean, and it wasn't much. It was attitude. He didn't really move that much. We didn't need arms waving or anything, but we got the attitude from Chopper that we've been looking for. So good there. After the opening, we see Ahsoka in the training room on her shuttle. They're still in hyperspace on their way to the other galaxy, and she's practicing, and you see her a hologram of Anakin, and he's talking to her about I'm training you to fight. It's not just going to be droids. You're going to run into Dooku and Ventress, which I would love for them to have done a Ventress. As a matter of fact, Claudia Black, who's playing like the lead witch, maybe she's not quite tall enough for Ventress, but yeah, I think she would have made a pretty good Ventress. But I was a little bit disappointed that we're getting the hologram recordings of Anakin talking to Ahsoka. She said he made 25 of these, and I get the impression that maybe she really didn't listen to them up until now. Now that she's kind of accepting uh, Anakin for the master, and maybe she's forgiven him for his fall or whatever. I just enjoyed seeing Hayden Christensen. I enjoyed seeing Hayden Christensen, and I never thought I'd ever hear myself saying that. But Hu Yang comes in and says, we're slowing down, we're getting ready to show up, and they get there, and all of a sudden there's something wrong. There's something going on. They're running into disturbance, and Ahsoka says, "Okay, we need to get out there." So she jumps in the pilot seat. They fly out of the whale's mouth, and the whales are flying through a minefield. And this, again, another situation where, it was Thrawn. It was all. When Thrawn said, if a Purgle comes out of hyperspace, dispatch it with prejudice. He wants it gone. So I expected them to come out of the hyperspace and then, oh look, shooting fish in a barrel. No. He put a minefield, and these whales are just, it's hurting them, but it's not like it's blowing up and you see chunks of the whale coming off of them. So it's definitely, they're just like, hey, this isn't right, this isn't cool. And Hu Yang makes the comment, well, at least the whales are giving us cover, and then poof, they're gone. They're jetting off into hyperspace again, which was really funny. But again, this is the Thrawn we've been waiting for. This is the Thrawn we've been that was such a Thrawn move. So far, you're meeting my expectation. They make it through the minefield, and Thrawn sends fighters after them. So to avoid the fighters, they decide to go down through the debris field, which was really dense. And at the time, I didn't clue in, but it kind of reminded me, it would remind you of the asteroids in Empire. So since I didn't think of it the very first time, I'm not gonna ding him for that. But what did pull me out of it is as they were going through their, Hu Yang does say, "We're gonna get pulverized." I was like, and there it is. As if you didn't catch it the first time, with them flying through, it's just like, hey, remember this thing. But, and they kind of do the same thing as the Falcon. They hide within. But, again, we're still getting the Thrawn, that the tactician. Now, when they flash back over to Thrawn on the Chimera with Morgan, she brings him a data pad because he doesn't know anything about Ahsoka. And he goes, her master was Anakin Skywalker, and there's a pause there. So, I mean, what is that pause? Is that pause because he had dealings? We don't know if Thrawn ever knew that Anakin became Darth Vader. It would be hard to not think that he didn't figure that out. Well, and then I guess by this time it would have been because they got the records from the Inquisitorius. So I would assume that it would be in those records. But I personally would have liked it better if he had just started talking about Anakin, or it would have played better to me if she hadn't handed him the data pad and you go, oh, I read it right here. If they kind of left it a mystery as to how he got the information. Because he also, from that point, they pull the fighters back. And, he's telling Morgan, no sense in wasting our resources because they've already had at least one ship blow up in the minefield. And he's got another plan, but he's saying to her how, we need to control them. If Anakin was her master, he was very cunning and elusive, and we need to control her path and remain one step ahead at all points. It bothers me that needs to be stated. And when in reading the books, you just knew it didn't have to be verbally stated that way. Even in the Rebels animated series, he never said, we're going to stay one step ahead of them. He just did it. And this guy's got his stuff together. So that was a little bit disappointing. Not much, but it just feels like it's being played down a lot. We switch down to the planet where Ezra is leading the caravan of slow-moving, dilapidated, streamlined, roly-poly things across the plains there. And apparently Sabine's been napping. She comes up, did you get some rest? I'm just like, what? She does tell him some stuff, like the Empire was defeated, there's a new republic, that sort of thing. But he still hasn't told her that he thinks Ahsoka's dead. And, he's like, well, how did you even find me? How did you get here? And just like, it was complicated, not a good enough answer. And, well, what happened to Ahsoka? Is she coming? And she gets that look on her face and just like, is it complicated? And she's still not telling anything. It's just, the scene is just kind of unnecessary. Now, I think this is where everyone talks about the pacing is just horrible in this thing, and I can't disagree with them. In the meantime, Ahsoka's in the debris field, and Hu Yang is trying to locate Sabine on the planet, and he can't do it, no scans. He doesn't know if he's being jammed or whatever. So Ahsoka says, "Hey, I got another way that I can find her." And he just looks at her and says, "You think your bond with her is that strong?" She's going to call to Sabine through the Force. At the same time, Thrawn has called, or the Great Mothers have come into the war room, and he's asked them to find Ahsoka in the debris field. And as soon as she starts to call through the Force, they locate her. And they're standing around the map, and they have the little balls and the little triangle, and she's right there, and the lines go down to, that's where she is. Thrawn says, "Enoch, you have the coordinates. Fire." And it just starts lighting that. This is the kind of thing that you expect from Thrawn. I know I keep saying that, but they flush her out of the debris field, and she's on her way down. Back down on the planet, we see Baylan Skoll top a hill, followed by Shin and the Nomads, preparing for an attack. The fight that we've been anticipating is coming is here. Baylan tells Shin, "Call Thrawn. Tell him that you found Ezra's and Sabine's location, and take your place in the new Empire." And she's like, "So you're not going to help us? You're not coming with?" And he's like, "Your path leads out a different way than mine." And he gives her a last bit of advice, you know, and she takes off. So the attack is, you know, because they're slow moving caravans. What are you going to do? The Marauders shoot like stormtroopers. Nobody get anything, but what can I say? I've never tried to shoot somebody in another vehicle while riding a horse. You know, the creatures that they're with, you know, Sabine makes the point, just like, I can understand them not having any weapons, but they're defenseless, and she's like, they're peaceful people. One of the caravans gets disabled, so they circle the wagons and they decide to go hand to hand. They're standing, Ezra and Sabine are side by side, and she's trying to give him the lightsaber, and he won't take it, and he's like, it's yours, I gave it to you, I don't need a weapon, I have the Force. Which makes me go, okay, this could be interesting. And it also, if he doesn't want his lightsaber back, that also puts me back in that, well, she can still be a Jedi, which she'll have the weapon so she can get trained. They're fighting these guys, and the fight is interesting. And then Shin shows up, and like they've got most of the guys down, the Marauders down. Thrawn has also sent 2 squads over to their location, and they haven't arrived yet. And so, at the last minute, Shin goes to decapitate Ezra and just gets his hair, and he's not even flushed, he's just like, close. He's fighting her without a weapon, and we've seen people deflect lightsabers with the Force before, but this is the first time I can remember when Ezra's doing it, you could actually see the light of the lightsaber being pushed back like flame being blown by a wind. Really cool effect. And between Ezra and Ahsoka, they think they've got Shin, you know, on the run, because Ezra even says, this isn't looking good for you. This is about the time the troopers show up, and you know, they're all hut 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 hut. Now Ahsoka jumps out of her shuttle, and she lands in front of Balin, and she's fighting Balin, and Balin's like, you know, I can't let you interfere, this has to happen. And she's like, I don't have time for this. And I think he was feeling a little bit like, I beat you one up so I can beat you again. But Ahsoka's like, some things have changed. And it's like she learned her lesson, because she did fight him, but she didn't defeat him. She fought him, and then she left. She moved on. He was not her objective. The fight between Ezra and the troopers and everything, that was going pretty well. Sabine got to the point where she had like a lightsaber in one hand and a pistol in the other. So I think that might be her style. That might be the direction we're going with that. Not one or the other, but a combination of the two. Which, you know, Thrawn can see that Balin isn't on the battlefield. So he's just like, where's Lord Balin gone? And just like, well, you know what? This is not the outcome we wanted, but call the guys back, we gotta go. Morgan's like, what are you talking about? They're not defeated. All I've seen is you've let the enemy reunite. And Thrawn, again, he's on task. It's like, look, what we needed was time. And this is what we've gotten. We're almost loaded. We're getting the heck out of here. So, basically, I'm in control. Shut up. Let me do this. They recall the troops. And what I did think was kind of goofy It was just a split-second thing. So you have the troopers surrounding Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra. Sorry. And you hear the return signal. There's a little drone flying over the battlefield, and there's a return signal. And so the troopers go. And then, they kind of look at each other. That's our signal to return. You've been doing this long enough. When you hear that, you don't need to look up at the drone. You just need to go. I think that was like, come on, let's think about this stuff. But that's just a nitpick. So they get on the thing, and Shin's standing there by herself in front of Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka. And Ahsoka says to her, "Surrender your weapon. I can help you." And for a split second there, I thought she might consider it, because everyone is gone. And she takes off, and Sabine was going to go after her. She's like, no. Now, at this point, Sabine and Ahsoka haven't spoken yet, and she's like, "I thought you were dead." And Ahsoka's like, "What? Missed this reunion?" And she gives Ezra a hug. And Ezra was just like, "You thought she was dead?" So now there's obviously got to be a conversation. She's gonna have with Ahsoka there now. They're all gonna have to sit down and have a really good heart to heart. But at least Ezra has the strong feeling now. Hey, I'm actually gonna get to go home. Which kind of tells me they're probably not going to go home. So, and then end the episode. Now, even with all of that stuff going on, we get to the end of the episode, and I still kind of feel like nothing really happened. A lot of things happened, but I guess the things that happened were things that I kind of expected to happen. I don't know. Either way, we're down to the final episode. And luckily for me, it's Tuesday night. And I can sign off and go upstairs, fire up the TV, and watch it. By the time you guys get to it, you've already seen it. And you might be able to look back and go, "Oh, he was an idiot. He had no idea what he was talking about." But for me, that's still in the future. So... And that's all we have for Ahsoka, Episode 7, Dreams and Madness. We'll see you for Episode 8.
Pew 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 pew.